Because of the New Age, I'd created a God that I was comfortable with. The God I'd created was me. I received eviction letters and I was like, whoa, how am I going to manifest my way out of this? It's a weird sort of topsy-turvy thing. The realization that I wasn't a good person and that I was actually very broken inside was very freeing. I was introduced to the New Age through family friends, and certain members of my family were into it. It's a really big umbrella term for lots of different types of beliefs. The things that I was drawn to, things like tarot cards, I was really into getting my fortune told and someone telling me what was going to happen. Having crystals in my home, wearing crystals, I believe that they'd bring a particular sort of energy, or they'd cleanse negative energy. I read a couple of books that sort of pushed me even further down a particular sort of path of the New Age. I used to believe that we all can attract things into our experience just by thinking and really believing them. And there were certain things that I do to reinforce that and to help me. So there were things like meditation, affirmation cards and angel cards. So I believe that sometimes the angels would have messages for us. And so I'd shuffle my deck of cards and pull one out and say, oh, so the angel wants me to focus on this today. This is my message. And I'd have these affirmation cards plastered all around the house. So I'd pick one out and keep it in my bag for the day or use it as a bookmark. It's all about self-empowerment, making you feel good, and it's all very comforting. It's all designed to make you be very independent and, you know, that sort of you can do it attitude. Everything would be great when things go your way. So, oh wow, I manifested that parking space. I drew that person into my life, or this job, all these great things, and you'd feel really amazing and you know, powerful and creative. But the problem was, when things didn't go your way, the only person you'd have to blame is yourself. I mustn't have believed enough. I must have been thinking something negatively. So then I'd go back to my affirmations, and there was an affirmation for exactly that thing, saying, I'd look at myself in the mirror and say, I can't wait until I can figure this out. And so it would go on this cycle of desiring something, working to manifest it, and sometimes that would happen, but then you'd be in a new vantage point to then shoot out a new rocket of desire. So you never quite get it done, so you're always left with this feeling of wanting. I was open to there being a God, so I thought I was very open-minded. Sometimes I'd say God, but a lot of the times I'd say the universe, or the universe wanted me to know this. I used to really think of myself as enlightened. I used to think a lot of myself like I was quite superior to some other people. I used to think Christians were closed-minded, gullible, and not enlightened. They were very much in the dark end of a lower vibration. I introduced a lot of people to the law of attraction, just because I wanted something good for them, like, oh, you know, you are strong and you can do this. And I genuinely thought I was helping people. There were times when I actually felt like a bit of a fraud, because I knew the truth that I wasn't living the life that I necessarily wanted to live, that I didn't have everything that I wanted to manifest. You know, I was drowning in debt at one point. I received eviction letters, and I was like, whoa, how am I going to manifest my way out of this? Even though the New Age and its principles might have good intentions and might be comforting, I actually, looking at them now, I feel that it's quite harmful. They left me feeling hopeless sometimes. You'd hate yourself sometimes. You'd feel really like frustrated and blame yourself because you didn't quite get it. And then I became pregnant with my first son. The pregnancy was fine, but things didn't go to plan with my birth. And so there were a lot of questions that I had about my manifestation skills. I had this beautiful baby boy in my life, but I felt very much out of control. I just felt like there was something wrong. But I had this wonderful life, and he changed the priorities in my life. So I was no longer career focused, which was the massive driving force up until then. I wanted to be available for him all the time. So I really wanted to be a stay-at-home mum. But you can't be a stay-at-home mum if you've got no money. So there was a lot of stuff that I just didn't feel very much in control of. I went back to the drawing board and was looking for those good affirmations to work on so that I could start believing that I got this. I went to a play group nearby at a local church, and I made some friends. One of the ladies who I met, who was actually running the play group, one day she invited me to do some Bible study with her. I went along to this Bible study not because I was curious, because I thought I knew it all, but because I wanted to have some company. I wanted somewhere safe to go where I could hang with my son and he could play and I could, be around other mothers. I'm not really interested. I've heard all about Jesus, and I used to believe that Jesus was a good teacher, did these miracles, but was like more of an ascended master. I was still very much practicing the New Age. Then I was pregnant with my second son. I approached the Christian friend that I'd made and I said to her, "Are you doing any more of those Bible studies?" And she was like, "No, why?" And I said, I just feel like I need something. She said that she knew of a Christianity Explored course that was going to happen soon. Bless her, she went with me to the course. So we did this Christianity Explored course and watched videos of Rico ties, which are great. But I remember that one of the first videos, him saying something like about talking about the gospel, saying that if this isn't the best news you've ever heard, then you haven't understood the message. And that really bothered me because, in all honesty, back then it really wasn't the best news I'd ever heard. Because of my debt, I think the best news that I wanted to hear would have been like winning the lottery. What is the message that I'm not understanding? I'm enlightened. Why is this not great news for me? So I kept going. Nothing seemed to be really happening. Something obviously was happening. A bit like when you put a seed in the ground, you can't see anything happening for a while, but there's definitely life happening beneath the soil. I think the very first time when I was invited to church, I kept saying no. I kept making up excuses as to why I couldn't go. But eventually she'd asked me so many times that I just felt a bit bad, and I heard the pastor preach. I was hearing the gospel in a really different way. I think for me it was a very, very gradual process that took a couple of years where, those dimmer switches, there's light, it was like slowly being turned up, slowly being illuminated. I don't know the moment I was actually born again, but I knew something had changed eventually and that I was actually calling myself a Christian, which was actually probably one of the last things that I ever wanted. He'd given me a new heart, like literally changed me from the inside out. So outwardly, some of my situations were still the same. I was still in debt, but I had this peace that I'd never had before. This real sense of everything was under his control. It's such a weird thing because I'd previously come from a belief where I was trying to be independent, not dependent on anyone or anything. But the sense of dependency on our Lord just was it felt like a burden had been lifted off me. I realized as well that my view of God was so small. Me equating God to the universe was so limiting. How could I say that they were the same thing when God created the universe? I wanted to serve him. I wanted just to obey him. I was so thankful. So many things changed in my life. I got married because I'd had 2 children, but we weren't married. We were living together but not married. I was insistent that we got married, and this fairy tale wedding that I wanted So suddenly that wasn't important anymore. The most important thing was just to get married, just to have something small and intimate, and just, doing it for the right reasons. I wanted to get right with God. Actually changed my my rota at work so that I could come to church. And I just felt that the more that I heard the word, the more I had this hunger for more of the word. So it's like he'd created this insatiable hunger within me that I wanted to hear more, I wanted to know more. But there were other things as well where I still had this sort of casual view of God because of the New Age. I'd created a God that I was comfortable with. The God I'd created was me, was someone who was like me. I'd speak to Jesus like, hey, Jesus, like very quite casually. So I didn't yet have a holy view of our Lord. And it's not to say that our Lord isn't approachable, that you can't speak to God, but it was very different. Over time, I was learning more and more. My understanding became clearer. The realization that I wasn't a good person and that I was actually very broken inside was very freeing. Knowing that I could just come to him and just completely depend on him. He's perfect, sovereign, so kind and patient, and someone who could love someone like me. Just, I have no words for. I'm forever grateful. And so now what I'm doing is the playgroup that I originally went to eventually stopped because it was sort of run by a mother for other mothers and their toddlers. Eventually those toddlers grew up. The playgroup wasn't necessary anymore. But the Lord put it in my heart to start up the playgroup again. I just wanted to serve the community and to serve him as well. So I've started up this playgroup at the local church, and I've invited all the local families along, so the little kids and their carers come along and they get to hear about Jesus every week. And I am now employed by the church, working in the children's ministry at that church. And I've got a real heart for, he's given me a real heart for helping families of young children know more about Jesus. And that's where I am today. And if you'd have asked me a few years ago, if you'd have told me a few years ago that I would be a Christian, not only Christian, but working for the church, teaching children about Jesus, I would have fallen over laughing at you. But here we are.